Hello, this is the first demo of Salute components library for a web. In this demo, I'm going to show you two things. First is Salute components library. And second is a web application where these components are used. Let's say like that. So components or component library basically is a building blocks which then could be used to build web applications or other components. As a basic component, let's imagine that we have a button, or we could have a label, or we probably could have some kind of input. This is a basic building blocks of any other components or application. We also can use basic building blocks to build more complicated controls or components, like let's say login component, which is actually consists of other components like label, input, and for example a button, which then displayed on a web page like login here, input for username, and OK button. Then, as soon as we have these building blocks, we can use these building blocks in external application. Let's say we have an MinDP application, and this is already a website, or let's say some kind of web app, which has our its own structure. Let's say some content here, some content here. It has some menu, some data, some content. And then we'd like to use this login component, let's say right here. So we'll place login component from our components library, which then rendered as a login here with an input and with a button. Okay, let me show you this basic building blocks. So this is a Salute components library developers workplace. And this is a web project where we have a list of our Salute components. Let's take, for example, a button component, and this is just a React code with a JSX, with events and with everything, where we can create our component, we can assign some behavior or some structure to that component. But also as part of this workplace, we have examples of how to use these components. For example, here for a button component, I already created two examples. Like we import button component from our Salute React library, and then just return it as JSX. We also can I also show another one use case where this button is used together with some additional properties like text. Now, if I start this application, it will run my own Salute developers sandbox, where I can develop, test any component. For example, for a button component, we have a button page. At this page, as I already mentioned, we have two examples. This is how this button looks. We can click on it. It doesn't do anything right now. But I also can see a code how to apply this component to any other React application. For example, this is a pure code rendered from an example. And I also can see all properties of this button. For example, here we have on-click event. It's a function, it's required. We also have a text property, which is string. It has default value and it's not required. So this is building blocks and place where I can develop these building blocks. The same, for example, for a label. This is two use cases for our label component. or let's say this is an input component with a huge amount of properties. This is some input where we say it's required and display some styling for required components. So this is our developers sandbox. Now let's get back to the whiteboard. I will place a button here and okay. So as already mentioned, we can use components to build other components. For example, let's imagine that as our building blocks, we have component like let's say slider. And this is something like that. Some slider where we can place or choose some value from this slider. Or we also have a component, let's mention like progress steps, where we display our current progress as some steps. And let's say here we just started some wizard with some progress in it. We also could imagine that we have a questionnaire component. Which is actually a text with a progress, with a slider, and with a button. All of these are Salute building blocks. Let me make a demo of building blocks for the questionnaire. First one is slider. And slider is a component where we can select single value from several possible options. Let's say this is a demo of a default slider. So this is something we can drag in order to get some value. It's called pure simple. It's just a slider component. If we check properties of the slider, we can see that we can provide list of options, default values, some values. We can show some additional data. We can handle and change functions. It allows us to build, for example, control like that. It's a slider with 5 possible options, with a default value pre-selected, with a list of options like this array. And for example, we would like to show value. Let's say then when we move slider, the current selected value is displayed here on the screen. So this is list of examples of our slider component. Let's check what we have for progress steps. This is also 3 use cases for the component we already have, and this is custom steps. Progress control, it's just the progress steps, which displays some displays something, some progress. Also could provide some steps count and current step. For example, this one consists of 6 steps with 3 already like marked as completed. We also can say that this progress is clickable. For example, we can allow to choose any kind of progress or something like that. Now, having all of these building blocks, we can build more complicated controls, like let's say questionnaire. And this is complete questionnaire component, which as a parameters requires to have a questionnaire ID. And this ID is something what we display here on a screen. Let's say our questionnaire component allow us to choose some value, click some button, send some results to the server. I will click couple times unless I find the last step. This is the last step. And we have a submit button. And as a result, we have just a submit result to the API server. Proof that it actually works. Let's open our developer tools. And here in the console, we can click submit. And this is submit a request to Salute API dev. Payload is some our data, and response is something what Salute API answered us as a submission result. Now, this is just a Salute sandbox which we use for developing our controls. Let's talk about how to use all of these controls. Let me go to the whiteboard once again. So we have our Salute library, which basically consists of some controls, button, label, questionnaire, and we need to output this source code, these controls as something that can be used on other web applications. For that, we use Babel to transpile our controls. So here, control source codes. So this is a source code of my component, and when I'm happy with developing all the features I'd like to put, I can run a build of our components library. And as a build, we have output package, our lib, which is actually pure JavaScript. This is what our button been transformed to. So this is React app in its build state. Now, as soon as we don't have, so this is a library I can put in any web app, where then I import my library and then use in any web application. Questionnaire, progress, or something like that, having all other content from the app itself. As soon as we don't have distribution process, so I will build my library once again. It has a lib folder as a build result, and what I will do, I just copy this build library to the some application I'm going to use it. For example, this is other application. I will copy my library, and this is let's say MinDB web application. This some external website. It has its own source code, it has its own application, it has its own components. But in one of these components, I'd like to use component from a Salute library, which is provided here as output from our lib. So this is our button in output format. In my application, I can import my controls and then, for example, use on some web pages. I will start this MinDB application. It will load my original website, and in that website, we already can see Salute control. Let me open DevTools to see to show a dialog with the server. Let's refresh. As a first call, we have initialize to get some data from API server. Then I can answer some questions, provide some values like that. And also I can submit result. As a result of submission, we see some response from the API server. Right now it's API on dev. Here, select dev. This questionnaire component, it is smart enough as soon as we placed this component. It's smart enough to do following things. Probably this responsibility need to be split to different components, but for now it can check if guest account already created. Check guest account. If not, create guest account, login with a guest account, get questionnaire data, display, grab results, and 7 display output from the questionnaire. Let me make a demo here. I will drop my previous application authentication data like that. Then I open a network tab to show a dialog. Here I need to refresh my web application. Here we can see that first thing called to create a guest account. Then with the guest account we obtained a token, guest account and password, and then we called initialize with the guest account for the questionnaire ID. Then if we submit some answers, last API call, we submit answers and get result from the API, and for now we just show the submission result. Basically that's it for the first demo of our components library and demo application where we're already using our components. Thank you so much.